Hello, I'm Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, for those who want to complain about the past year, you might not get to do so in front of a bartender if indications about a tightening on COVID restrictions are correct. As numbers continue to climb, tighter regulations are expected next week. And while drinking is being challenged, gambling got a boost with the news of Caesars Entertainment taking over and enhancing the Harris site, a move that may bode well for the resurgence of tourism. We'll look at these stories as well as what we learned about racial politics from Saturday's election, why the Irish might march on the 4th of July in Jefferson Parish, fear of vaccinations, and our Future Watch segment updates the condition of the airport. At the gate for us are tonight's Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Will Sutton, columnist, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, Don Ostrom, Channel 12's Future Watch reporter, and Anthony McCauley, staff writer of the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. I'm going to go over to E first, and let's get the latest on COVID and what's happening and what might we expect in terms of restrictions.
Well, I think one of the best quotes of the week came from Pete Dufresne, who's the parish president of St. James Parish, and they announced yesterday that they wouldn't have the bonfires. And he said, look, if any of you think that this is government manipulation and the government's manipulating the numbers, go look at the hospital beds and see the numbers right there, that they're full. And so he said this is a very real thing, and it's spreading all over. And in Orleans, in New Orleans, it's kind of like we're about to have this big holiday party, and everybody's ready to be festive. And there's this big shoe out there getting ready to fall. I mean, all the indications are is that there's going to be some rules and tighter rules. And what we're hearing is one is first of all with bartending. Now we take that to mean actually being at the bar and getting drinks, which of course you like to do. This is the time to get eggnog with rum in it at this time, and it looks like that's going to be cut back. And the bar business is just hurting so much. It sounds like group sizes are going to be cut down from 25 to 20. We're seeing indications with games. This is the time of the year, of course, when we get the big football games. Let me tell you, football is relevant, especially because in December in a lot of cities where you lose a lot of your convention trade, if you have good football activity, which we do in New Orleans with two bowl games and a pro team, that could really be a lot of income. And lately, the last few games, they've allowed 15,000 people into a Saints game. Now it looks like it's going to be cut back to 3,000.
Right.
And the next home game is going to be against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the defending Super Bowl champs. So imagine that, having the defending champs playing the Saints, where you could have easily gotten beyond 70,000 and holding it down to 3,000. And then the NBA season's about to start too, and they've said that they're going to go down to that's going to be held to like 800 per game, and so it's going to be a little bit of a gloomy time. I think people are going to be really disappointed. Of course, I mean, we know the arguments. It's it's health versus the economy, but boy, one certainly affects the others.
So with these numbers rising, as you say, we are expecting to hear tighter restrictions. And that would be happening fairly soon, I would guess, the next 2
I would
3,
think
4
so. I
days?
thought it might have happened today, but it might happen over the weekend. It's going to happen soon. It's going to happen early next week. And so, yeah, we'll know. And, they're all saying it goes back to Thanksgiving, that, the spike came. 2 weeks have passed since Thanksgiving. It takes around that long to measure the impact of something. So I think part of the strategy in the inner circles is let's try to ward this off Christmas. And tell people, look what happened at Thanksgiving. Imagine what's going to be like for Christmas if we don't do something. So I think part of this is a reaction, and part of it is preventive.
So certainly, I mean, everybody's urging, the officials are urging, keep wearing those masks. Very important. Wash your hands. Socially
It's the main
distance.
thing that's been from the very beginning. Wash your hands, maintain your distance, and wear your mask.
All righty, E. Thanks a lot. Well, let's go on over to you. You wrote a piece this week sort of reflecting on the fact that African-American women have really been doing great at the box office, getting ballot box, getting appointments. We have saw about a month ago a number of African-American women elected to the Orleans Parish Criminal Court bench. But of course, this past weekend, that wasn't necessarily the case in the Orleans DA's race.
Well, absolutely not. In the primary, you had four black candidates, three men and one woman. A number of people were looking at that as a continuation of some of the other things that have been happening with the year of the woman generally in terms of electoral politics, and the year of the black woman in the case of a number of elections campaigns that were won by black women. But I think this past weekend's election shows us that it's not strictly a gender issue and it's not strictly a race issue. Jason Williams won the DA's race handily, 58%. And while under federal indictment for tax fraud. So it says a lot that the electorate was willing to go with him. And I think a lot of that has to do with history and context. So everybody was saying that they are a reformer, but who had the deepest roots, who had the history, and who were people willing to look for and vote their confidence, even with the risk that somebody like Williams under indictment, if it goes in a different direction, would have to be replaced.
Before the election, and we discussed this on the show last week, and the anticipation was this was going to be a pretty tight race for Orleans Parish DA. We didn't see it happen that way. What do you think happened there?
Well, I think what happened was that polls are really subject to the people that they actually talk to. And I don't think a lot of the grassroots people were polled. If you look at the endorsements in the race, you saw the high profile elected officials endorsing Kiva Landrum, and you saw grassroots organizations endorsing Jason Williams. And I might add, grassroots from New Orleans, Louisiana, with some national support as well. But in the end, it's the people who are registered to vote who make that choice. And I think the people decided that they saw a clear difference. And it wasn't just voting for a woman or voting for a black person. It was about reformist approaches. And
There we go. With our technology, that happens. We will work to get Will back so he can finish his thoughts on that. But right now, why don't we jump on over to Anthony McCauley, Tony, as we're going to call you, okay? Now, you covered the news from Harrah's Hotel and, of course, Casino that they're going to do some branding changing and then also new hotel and some renovation. So why don't you tell us about what the plans are?
Yeah, well, that's it was something which was agreed last year with the owners of Harrah's as part of their deal to get an early renewal, a 30-year renewal from the state of the casino license. So the fact that they're going to be spending $325 million down there is not new, but they've since been taken over by another group, El Dorado Group. They've kept the name Caesars, so they're going to start rebranding their biggest properties around the country, Caesars. That's what's going on there. And then I think what's interesting about it is that it's the biggest casino group in the country, and if you take it together with the Four Seasons project, which is directly across the street, that's going to be $1 billion of investment in development of new properties, new hotels. The casino, the casino's hotel wing, an additional wing, is going to be 341 rooms. Adding on to the 450 rooms they have already. And then across the street, another 341 rooms and 92 very expensive condos. So that's two big national groups making a bet on how New Orleans will come out of the pandemic, if you like. They'd already had this in tow, both of these groups, before the pandemic, of course, and had a lot invested there. But the fact that these projects are moving ahead, the Four Seasons is hoping to open in the spring. It's a big thumbs up from them about how they feel the long-term outlook for the
Tony, let me ask you,
economy is.
when I read the story, I was surprised because it seems to me all businesses would want to hedge right now, especially in tourism development. So here's a group saying we want to build another hotel tower and we want to invest more. Why are they so optimistic? Because all the indications. Now I know New Orleans is a better tourism town than most places, but why are they believing so much in the city?
Well, if you take gambling, it actually over from 2008 to 2018, gambling revenue for Harrah's Caesars had gone down by a third. But if you look at how it recovered since it reopened in July, it's still way down on what it was before. But there've been about 500,000 people through the doors from July to October, and they've spent more money per person during that period than the 1.5 million people that went through in the same period last year. So it was about 90 million revenue in that period last year. It's about more than 50 million this period. So I think they expect that with the additional attractions and the additional hotel rooms, that the long-term bet on gambling here it looks pretty good.
And how about that second floor? I know part of it has been made into that film or theater space. Not a lot of the use for it so far. But how about that's a lot of space up there that's unused.
Yeah, they've said they've made some general comments about the kind of additions they want to make. They haven't been specific about the currently unoccupied second floor. They have the Fillmore there, which is a relatively small space. Casinos, obviously, this is a group which owns a lot of properties in Vegas, and non-gambling revenue has been the fastest growing part of that industry's revenue in recent years, trying to expand out to attract families and so on. I guess the parents are gambling and the kid, or one or other of the parents are gambling, and the kids and the other part of the family are off doing something else. So that's what they put in there is obviously going to be quite important for the future earnings.
So the plan is to do all of this in the same footprint, right?
Yeah, that's right. The 340 room extension goes up on the existing casino premises right now. And the internal space then that they're going to make the additional investments in, as Errol was just referring to, that's part of the existing structure.
So this means jobs, extra jobs?
Yeah, the initial, and they've promised this as part of their investment to get the license. It's 600 construction jobs for the next 4 years, and then an additional 500 permanent jobs then after the renovations. That's on top of the 2,200, 2,400 jobs that they've had prior to the pandemic.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Tony. And we're going to jump back over to Will because we got him back. And let's have you finish up your thoughts about what we saw happen with the DA's race and about justice reform, and then also the criminal court bench. It is going to really be a totally different, well, a somewhat different bench. Just a lot of women on that bench now.
There'll be a lot of women, and perhaps I'm biased because I'm the son of a woman, and I have sisters. But I think women bring a different context to criminal matters, juvenile matters, justice matters, and it pays for us, we men, to listen to women. So by having women in authority, and then having reformist approaches, the conversations will change significantly in January when Jason Williams is installed as DA, and we have these women on the benches, and also in juvenile court as well. There will be a number of changes.
This movement for change, for criminal justice reform, has really been going on for years, maybe kind of slowly, somewhat quietly, but boy, it really has taken root.
Yeah, and it really has. And, because in this case in New Orleans, we're talking about a number of Black women and more recently a Black man. I want to make sure that people understand that in other big cities and similarly sized cities, Philadelphia, for instance, a white male mayor reformist, a white male DA reformist in a Black city. So it's not strictly about I'm going to vote for the Black guy or for the Black woman. It's really about the philosophies and the patterns and people who dealt with these systems and these structures and wanting to see change.
Well, Orleans Parish voters certainly spoke their mind, didn't they? They want to see change.
They sure did.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Will. Stick around. Don't go anywhere because we need to come back to you.
Okay.
We're going to go to Dawn right now. The airport. Boy, the airport. What a time to open a brand new airport.
Yes, 6 months into the brand new airport's existence as the brand new airport, a worldwide pandemic hits, and the numbers indicate that it was not good. For example, in the month of April, the airport had 3% of the same number of passengers it had the April prior to that. But year to date, it's looking a little bit better. It's certainly not great, but year to date, they're tracking to have about 40.6% of the passenger traffic they had in the prior year, the year before the pandemic. And the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which is almost always one of the busiest travel days of the year, has been the busiest travel day during the pandemic as well. It was way down, though. It was only 43% of the passenger traffic as a year before. So the airport's certainly hurting. At one point, almost all of the concessionaires closed up shop. In the month of April, there were only 13 open. The airport is working diligently with the concessions operators there. Usually, there's a minimum requirement that they owe a minimum to the airport every year for their ability to operate. They've changed tune right now so that the restaurants and shops and things are only providing a portion of their sales, a percentage portion of their sales throughout the remainder of the year so that they're able to stay open and aren't subject to having to pay that minimum to be able to stay in the airport. So far, none of those concessionaires has had to leave. And if you've been through the airport, it's, there's an Emerald's restaurant, there's a Cafe du Monde, it feels like New Orleans to people who fly into the airport, and they'd like to be able to maintain that feel and not have to run people out of business. So hopefully that works out. In the meantime, there is some good news happening, though. For instance, Southwest announced today new direct service to Houston Bush Airport. The flyover from the I-10, the flyover that was supposed to not be finished until 5 years into the new airport, the DOTD project, is actually running ahead of schedule. If you drive out in the Kenner area, you can see the ramps going up. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to now be complete by the end of 2022. It's a design build. They're designing as they go, and it's apparently working well, so it's on target to open earlier. Industry experts, however, say that air travel across the nation and really the world isn't expected to be back to pre-COVID levels until 2024 or 2025. So as the air traffic comes back, the road will be ready for it. So if you want to look at it that way, we can see glass half full. And some growth opportunities have happened in the interim as well. Amazon Prime Air now is running a daily cargo operation out of New Orleans International Airport. So there is more cargo opportunity happening on that. And the South Terminal will be part of a completed master plan. The South Terminal that closed up for the new terminal will be open. They're working on finishing up the master plan for what can be done with that. Mm-hmm. The airport has also received an accreditation that only 6 airports have received, and that's for the global biorisk markers. So they have figured out how to handle the risk of germ prevention. They've got the plexiglass walls up, social distance markers, increased sanitization to the point where they've been worldwide recognized for how well they're doing it and keeping it safe there. Pre-COVID, there were 16 airlines operating out of the airport with 8 international destinations. Right now, there are no international destinations. Hopefully, that's something that comes back as well. So there's good news, bad news. March 2020, there were an average of 172 daily flights. Currently, there's an average of 70 to 75 daily flights. So if you've if you got little kids who like to look up and see the planes, there just aren't as many of them right now.
I think the significance of Southwest going into Bush International is that that's an international airport, and Southwest, I think you can see expanding into Mexico and Central America, and so people will be flying from here to there and back through Bush. Whereas Southwest has always flown to Hobby, which is just a regional airport, not an international airport. So this is, I think, you can see some revved up south of the border type flights because of that Southwest service, which will help us in some ways.
Not just with the airport. I've heard it kind of across a lot of industries that people are ready and waiting, and once the pandemic is closing to an end, people are ready to just unleash. And it looks like our airport will be in a good position if people unleash and start all that new international travel and business travel and all that will be ready to go. Now, it's just slow.
Most immediately, Christmas vacation, Christmas travel. what's expected for that?
They're expecting to end the year at that 40.6% of passengers year to date, so no
not a
major
real jump.
increase.
Okay.
Slow, steady growth, but nothing massive.
Okay. All right, Don, thanks a lot. Well, let's head back over to you right now. And of course, everybody's, thinking about the vaccines. When are we going to start seeing them? Who's going to be receiving them? And you had some ideas about that in a column you recently did.
Yes, and this is a very Louisiana focused, New Orleans focused, because our culture bearer, our culture class workers, I think, are central to the future of the economy during the end of the pandemic and post pandemic. Certainly, I have been in a Sutton slow phase, but I want to welcome anybody who wants to come, but I want them to feel safe. And I think a big part of that can be making our culture bearers, our culture class workers safe, testing, protections, and vaccinations. And I think it's something that we should look at seriously and be able to market that and become the safest city in the nation.
And so those workers are working in what areas, would you say?
Well, they're working in restaurants, bars, arts, music, and then you have the spinoffs like the rideshare drivers. So we can talk about who should be in the defined culture class for these protections. But there's no question that you take hospitality and tourism out of the New Orleans economy, it's out of the Louisiana economy, and we've got a big gap. So I'm just suggesting that we think about this a little different way.
And as you said, to make our visitors feel safe, I mean, all of us feel safe because we like to enjoy our culture, economy here as well. Those of us who are residents.
Absolutely.
So, there is going to be a phasing of different groups who are going to be getting the vaccinations or, before others. So you're urging just for the thought to be given for those folks who work in those fields that are really fronting the public. They're dealing with the public a lot. To be vaccinated, you'd like to see them sort of up there on the list?
Absolutely. I would not suggest that we move them ahead of healthcare workers and frontline workers. But as we look at this, and certainly there are federal guidelines, but if we can push back a bit as a community, as a place with an economy that is so tied to hospitality and tourism, we can push back a bit and get some exceptions for some different directions. I think that's worth considering. And if we put the data together, and we've got a lot of good organizations, business, cultural, and otherwise, I think we can pull it off.
The state is putting together its plan for the distribution and who's going to be inoculated, but they are quick to say also this is not all complete. I mean, this could be evolving a little bit. So perhaps they are reading your column and they'll take it to heart.
Well, I hope so. We've got to deal with a number of people who are skeptical of vaccines.
Right.
And we've got to continue doing what we're supposed to do, washing our hands and staying apart and masking up.
Yeah, no, that's another issue certainly that the state is concerned about is just getting people to actually agree to be vaccinated. So we will see because it's all just starting. It's a vaccine, though we have been waiting for it. All right, well, thanks a lot. Back over to you. Of course, this pandemic has impacted Mardi Gras because we're not going to see parades. So trying to make some other plans. Jefferson Parish has an idea.
Well, Jefferson Parish, which has a real carnival spirit in Jefferson Parish, because a lot of people were from New Orleans and have roots in New Orleans, but they're trying to deal about a way to be able to have some of the parades later in the year. And it's not just about fun and catching beads. I mean, it's a business decision for a lot of the people along the way, for a lot of the crews, for a lot of the people. The guy who rents Mel Gorotsky, who rents tuxedos, is seeing all his businesses taking a real beating right now, and so they want to see some sort of semblance of carnival if possible. And so the plan that the Parish Council was considering this week was having parades on the week of Memorial Day. And they're still considering that. The one thing they realize is that they just don't know enough yet in terms of where we're going to be in terms of the vaccinations and the virus. So I think there's a plan out there. They said we're going to reconsider in January. So I think there's a plan out there. If things look safe and if the vaccinations are in control, then maybe in Jefferson Parish around Memorial Day you'll have carnival parades. I argue that you don't call them Mardi Gras because parades, it's not Mardi Gras. They can be carnivals. You just have your own Jefferson Parish carnival around Memorial Day, maybe even tie it in with Memorial Day. They're also doing the same thing with the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is a big deal in Jefferson Parish, and have that on the 4th of July. And so pushing those back, again, everything depends on what's happening. I think St. Patrick's Day on 4th of July right now has a better shot than the carnival parades on Memorial Day just because of the proximity. But those are the ideas. And of course, they're going to have all the rules about the masking and not throwing certain things and crowd distancing. So all those things will be in effect. But they're trying to have a plan to have something that resembles carnival sometime this year.
Yeah, so we can keep some of our culture there.
Yeah.
And what about in Orleans? I mean, we know that there's not going to be any parades, but have any other ideas surfaced how to observe?
The mayor had given the cruise, her thing was Carnival won't be canceled, but it's going to be different. And they'd given them actually to this week to come up with some other proposals about doing something that's different, which the mayor's office has to approve, that could be considered safe. And you hear different rumors out there about crews submitting ideas, but I haven't heard anything definitive yet. I know that things that are being looked at. There are some things that are being done independently of the crews, like this idea of decorating houses, like carnival floats. I think that's going to take off. I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of thing, but that's independent of the crews. But I think we're yet to hear from some of the crews, and I think some of them are going to just say, we're not going to do anything. We're going to just fold up until next year. But there's going to be bits and pieces of things happening.
Right. Yeah, I think that certainly New Orleanians definitely like the idea of decorating. So we might see definitely some float houses. Okay, time to take a look at other stories. E, start with you.
Well, speaking of traditions, a long tradition in New Orleans has been the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, which has always been known for its beautiful decorations. I was afraid of an announcement saying, hey, it's going to all be virtual this year, but it's not. You can walk through the lobby. It's decorated. It's a beautiful block-long lobby, but they will have all the precautions. You have to wear a mask, and you can't stop and look. You have to keep moving, and you have to be distanced. But at least there's a real live thing that people can go and really revisit a bit of New Orleans Christmas from the past.
Very good. Don.
There's a battle brewing again between Mayor Cantrell and Christian singer Lauren Daigle. Mayor Cantrell has asked Dick Clark's Rocking New Year's Eve to remove her from the New Year's Eve concert lineup in New Orleans. We'll see how that plays out next week.
All right. Tony?
Well, let's stick with hospitality. I think the thing to look out for, Errol was saying we're going to be hearing about whether restrictions are coming back or not. A big thing as to whether we're going to get a fast turnaround in the hospitality sector will be whether or not the convention center is allowed to have people come back in January, and particularly in March with the Helicopter Association. That's the big sort of one that will determine that.
All righty. Thanks. Will, real quick.
Yeah, I definitely have some under the radar stuff. I want to say congratulations to Reggie Thomas, the new Lafayette City Marshal, and Calvin Cooks, the new Thibodeau City Marshal. First time that I can see for citywide, parish-wide Black elected officials.
All right.
Not getting a lot of attention because it's not New Orleans or Baton Rouge. And then the biggest story in my life is my dad is turning 90 years old, Dillard University alum.
Happy birthday, Dad. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for being here. Thank you all for joining us. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening. Thanks, guys.